Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Incidentally, every 12th of August is marked as International Day of the Youth, and that was yesterday. On the program this morning, we intend to take a look at this topic, which we think is quite timely, and is Nigeria's systemic challenges and youth development. Research statistics show that the youth make up to 60 or even a little over 60% of Nigeria's population. But are we harnessing those numbers in the positive way? And what are some of the systemic challenges that we can identify facing the Nigerian youth, especially in beating their growth, their development, and them harnessing their full potential? We have our guest in the house today. Of course, when you see him, he carries his brand around. He wears it like a badge. And of course, he's here on the program with us this morning. Joining us as a welcome Fola Daniel Adelis. He's a youth advocate, an author, and a motivational speaker. Thank you, Fola, for being on the program. It's always a pleasure to join you this morning. So when we say systemic, a lot of people will think, oh, are you guys sure you didn't make a mistake? Should it be systemic or should it be systematic? And so some will say, oh, what do you mean by systemic challenges? Can we identify some of the systemic challenges that now narrow it down to Nigerian youths that we know are limiting the potential of our young people?
Thank you, and I'm really very grateful that you have asked me to come again. And I also like the topic, first of all, the word systemic challenges, because I have an article that I wrote a while back titled Systemic Disenfranchisement of the Nigerian Populace. And what I did was to take a memory down the lane to see our elections way back from 1999 up until the 2020 elections, to see the patterns of voting and all of that. And a few quick things I could deduce was that, first of all, we've never achieved 50% voter registration, and actual voting has never been up to 30% of our population. But let's come back to systemic challenges. There's nothing wrong with the word systemic challenges, and systemic challenges can actually be systematic. So what we simply mean, for those who are listening, is when we say systemic challenges, we're talking about the issues in the system inhibiting the growth of the people. And an easy way to illustrate it would be to say that you put three of us on the track, and after putting three of us on the track, you put a hurdle in front of me, he has a hurdle in front of him. So we have to jump over the hurdles to get to the finish line, but there's no hurdle in front of you, and we have the same finish line. So when we have the same finish line with hurdles in front of us and none in front of you, that's part of the systemic challenges we're talking about, because from the start, there's no equity. There's no level playing ground. So depending on where and to which family you're born in Nigeria, you have some advantages. So when we talk about systemic challenges, we're saying that the system is already against certain people, and the system is for certain people. If you're born with certain surnames, you're guaranteed to succeed in this country. But if you're not born with those surnames, you're guaranteed to struggle at some point. And if you're not careful, you're going to struggle for the rest of your life. So systemic challenges would include, take for example, how easy is it to access education? How easy is it to get a job? How easy is it to do certain things that you want to do in life? I'll give you one typical example from my own experience. I did JAMB at one sitting and I scored 205. This was 20-something years ago. Now, at that time, I was told I couldn't study law with that score.
At 205?
First attempt and only attempt ever. Then I got into school only to realize that there were other people studying law who didn't score 205.
And they were admitted.
And they were admitted.
But you didn't have their names.
Even if I did, what was I going to do about it? So when we say systemic challenges, how do you tell me that I can't study law because of a particular score? Then I get into school, I found out people studying law with less score. So the systemic challenges we're talking about, we're saying that if you have a particular grade, it should be the standard across board. Take a look at what JAMB is today across Nigeria. In the southwest, it's a lot tougher to get into the universities.
True.
In the northern part of Nigeria, it's a lot easier to get into university. So somebody will score 260 and not make medicine. Whereas with a much lower, the person will be studying medicine.
Right.
I worked in an organization some years back when I served this country, and I don't want to mention names, but I realized that in that organization and for people in that region, you did not need to have good grades to get into the system. All you needed was technically a certificate of attendance in school.
Wow.
So I was in the HR department, and I saw grades. You know what we call Pepperfield? Meaning that it was F9 parallel. It's just proof that this person went to school, even though did not come out with anything.
Right.
And that's all the person needed to get a job. And the person got jobs.
Compared to others.
Compared to others down south, where
You would have to struggle.
your A1 is not enough. In addition to your A1, you must know people.
Right.
So those are systemic challenges. Now, in the bid to try and push some people up, we have dropped the bar so low. And for dropping the bar so low, we have ridiculed excellence.
Right.
In some parts of the country. It's one of the systemic challenges. The other is that there's no credit system for young people in this country. You have to have worked with someone, you need to have years of experience, you need to have a track record of income and all of that. Nobody says, okay, we can trace your, like the Yorubas will say, Abereto Lokondini, meaning that we know where to trace this one to and all of that.
We know your roots.
Yes. Abroad, all they have is a credit society. Whatever it is, you can get something because you've been in the system.
Right.
And you can get seed fund for ideas. You can get investors. You can get venture capitalists to look into what you're doing and say, we're going to put money into it. Right here, it's almost impossible. And some who are getting the opportunities are also still giving us a bad name.
Right.
Okay, Fola, when you look at this struggle and the systemic challenges, how has it impacted our youth, their development, and the fact that some of them engage themselves in all forms of vices as we speak? So we can as well say that the country, ab initio, had failed its people. So when you see them engaging themselves in Yahoo Yahoo or any other form of social vices, then you cannot blame them but the system.
Well, first of all, I would not exonerate anybody who is into fraud on the basis of the system, because they are not the only ones in the system. There are some of us who have it worse compared to whatever it is that they are dealing with, and we're not into fraud. So that's not excusable.
Okay.
However, talking about the challenges, I think that systemic failure is what has led to the rise of Japa.
Yeah.
Systemic failure is what has led to the commercialization of marriages, where marriage is an escape route from poverty for some people. So it's not that I'm ready to marry, it's not that I'm in love with this person, it's just that when I marry, he's going to be my burden bearer. And I don't have to worry about baby bearing the burdens alone. Now, systemic challenges have also led to people being more focused on money rather than offering value. So we would focus, or we would go with anybody who puts money on the table instead of going with somebody who has integrity. So in the police force today, you hear people who are with stories like, oh, this person is a person of integrity, this one a pastor, I better no use your reggae, spoil our blues. So that person is going to be poor for the rest of his life. He's going to be isolated. He doesn't get transferred to the hot spots where he
The
can
juicy
use
spots.
the juicy spots and stuff like that. That's part of the systemic challenges we're talking about. But the major thing that I'm going to come back to is the japa, or the brain drain that we're experiencing as a country. Now, it's not as bad as we think it is, because we have a tendency to always exaggerate our issues. Now, if you ask me, why am I saying we're exaggerating? What's the population of this country? Over 200 million. It keeps fluctuating. Nobody knows exactly what
That's
it is.
the probability.
But
We're
just throwing figures around. But let's even stick with 200 million. As of today, how many people can afford what it costs to run out of this country? Because to run out of this country, you would need at least anything between 30 to 50 million. Doing it legitimately, not going by the sea. Not, being a stowaway in an airplane.
Right.
So if you have 30 to 40 million that you can raise conveniently, is it not smarter to stay in this country?
And invest it.
And invest it? Because at the end of the day, you realize that if you're able to raise that money, lump sum, and stay in this country, you will actually have a return on investment and be able to retain a whole lot of it, rather than going to a place where you pay up to 30 to 40% in tax. Unfortunately, because we still have smart Nigerians leaving the country, we're going to suffer for it at the end of the day. Yeah. Look at what's happening with football. Look at what's happening with, I don't want to dignify her by mentioning her name, this person who recently said she doesn't identify as a Nigerian anymore. It's such a shame on her, not on the country, on her, because whether you like it or not, you studied in this country gave you a form of education before you went over there. But then we now come back to blame the country, realizing that if we had better systems and structure, if somebody makes a kind of statement like that, she will be ashamed to make that kind of statement. Right. Nobody would even have that kind of conversation online. So that's where we are at today. Because of these challenges, people go out of this country and some of them would never look back. And some of them are the best brain surgeons we can think about. Look at Oluyinka Olutoye in the United States, who did a surgery, brought out a fetus, operated on the fetus, returned to the womb, and the baby was delivered safely. Right. Look at Philip Emeagwali, developed the fastest computer in the world. There's this guy now, Ndubuisi Ekekwe, a Nigerian professor who spends more time in the US than in Nigeria. Are you aware that he has a patent that the US government pays him for? Right. A Nigerian developed something, the US government pays him for it. There's this set of Nigerians again in the in the UK. They're developing a kind of battery in a research laboratory that would power your phone, and for the rest of the life of that phone, you would never have to charge it.
Imagine.
It's been developed. It's not in a developmental phase. And they're coming up with batteries that will power an entire home, and you would never need power supply from outside of your home. And you wouldn't even be able to exhaust it. You would ask other people to come and plug into it. These are Nigerians.
Right.
So imagine if they live in Nigeria, or if Nigeria had funded their research. Go to Yaba, go to CC Hub. Go to Sail Lab in Ikorodu. Go and look at what young people are developing.
Right. I'm glad that you've brought this up, Fola, which would lead me to the next question. You've talked about Nigerians doing amazingly well outside the shores of this country. And of course, we have loads of young people who are also doing well in Nigeria, only if they have the opportunity to showcase what they're doing. So on the flip side, let's look at the education sector and look at the kind of curriculum that we use. Would you say that the curriculum truly prepares young people for today's reality? Especially today's job markets, especially in tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, and all of the things that you've mentioned now, because it feels like we keep talking about the issues, but are we also looking at some of the solutions? Are we still in denial from what we used to do as to what really is obtainable at the moment?
Unfortunately, the answer is no, capital no. And it didn't just start today.
Right.
More than 20 years ago when I was in school, there was nothing in school that prepared me for what I'm doing today.
Sure.
Or the things that I'm into today. And unfortunately,
it still remains so.
It's the same. Mention one school that offers artificial intelligence as a course. For those of us in the media space who studied mass communication, mention one department in a Nigerian university that offers social media as a course. Whereas abroad, as of 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there are universities already doing master's degree in social media management.
Right. Well, you can't give what you do not have.
That's the point. That's why we're saying that we need to start looking at, this is where the world has gone past that, but we still don't have it.
Right.
Now, artificial intelligence is the buzzword. How many universities are teaching artificial intelligence? But you also cannot blame them, because where it's going to start from is who's
going to teach that person.
Now, when you also talk beyond who is going to teach them, we have people who can teach them actually. But the question is, who is in charge of our educational curriculum at the top? What are they thinking about? I wish somebody like maybe Bosun Tijani would collaborate with the Ministry of Education and tell them, look, we need to start teaching social media. We need to start teaching artificial intelligence. We need to start teaching UI, UX designs. We need to start teaching. WordPress is even completely outdated, but we still need to teach it in our schools. Who is teaching all of that? Which curriculum has it? except you get out of schools and go to special training centers to learn how to code, to learn social media, to learn all of that. These are things that are full-fledged departments and faculties in some foreign universities.
Right, right.
Okay,
So-
Fola, from your narration just now, excuse me, it does show that our youth are lagging behind
Absolutely.
compared to their counterparts in developed climes. And this will bring me to the question of leadership. It appears those that we elect as our leaders, they do not have any vision taking Nigeria forward. Because if we do not have faculty of social media or department or courses in social media, then where lies the future for this youth?
So what I can do, or what we can quickly say right now, instead of just leaving it to our leaders, is that as Nigerians, we also have the capacity to push bills through our elected leaders, through our senators, through the members of the House of Reps. We can write open letters. We can, for example, and I think I'm going to take this up and send a message to Mr. Botson Tijani, the minister in charge of digital economy. I think we need to not focus on blaming them, but try and do something through our elected leaders and say, look, there are universities abroad have been offered courses to say, come and do a master's degree in social media, come and do a master's degree in artificial intelligence. Why have we not gotten to that point where I understand that in addition to systemic challenges, there's a mindset problem with so many of the university managers. Apart from a mindset problem, there's also the need for technical training because the people who are lecturers today, like you rightly said, do they have the requisite knowledge to facilitate? In computer science departments, there are no computers.
So what are we computing?
They are teaching them with blackboard.
Theory.
In so many computer science departments. And when a computer science department, students are supposed to sit behind computers, learn and do coding, do practical stuff. They are writing coding with hand. They are doing theory. How can somebody who is in computer science department be doing project defense on paper? When you're supposed to develop a mobile app for me and say, this is my project. Those are the issues we're talking about. And that's why it comes back to credit again, because if you say that they should go and buy computers, does the school have money to buy computers? If you now tell the students to bring laptops, does the student have the money to buy the required laptop to go and code in school? Because when you talk about coding, development, it's not just ordinary laptops that you'll be using. There's a grade you have to buy. There's a specification for it. So where does the student get the money? Because those kind of laptops, if you're buying used ones today, you seem to be talking about 500,000 upwards. And if you're buying brand new, you'll be talking about 2 million naira upward, enough to buy an acre of land in my village.
Right.
So it's intertwined.
Yeah.
There's a systemic issue, there's a mindset problem, there's a leadership problem, there's also the money problem. However, one place where we can start from, like you asked, is let's send messages to our elected representatives. We need to have this. The NUC needs to be petitioned. The Ministry of Education needs to be petitioned. Just in case you're not thinking in this direction, we need to have social media as a department. We need to have artificial intelligence, maybe as a department or something, or as a course in several universities.
But for these are people that are widely traveled, and even some of their children are over there, and they see the quality of facilities that they enjoy.
So the question
why
is,
can't they replicate the same thing here?
Do they travel for research purposes or for fun?
Right, or for pleasure.
Because when you travel for pleasure, all you see is what? Pleasure.
Yeah,
Before I can decide that, okay, my son or my daughter is going to attend a particular university, I would have done my research and look at the facilities
not
there.
in all cases. Some people
So the
do
research
because
you're
others
talking
are doing
about
it.
is, well, that's another thing. One, they do research to check which school is good enough for my child.
Oh, it's more expensive.
Not for the Nigerian people. Then, like you said, some people do it just to show, which school is your own son in? Harvard. Okay, my own son too is in Swansea. So it's more of a status thing.
Right.
Like back in the days when we were in Lagos, you say, you are living in Ikoyi. Me too. We're living in Parkview. Or me too, we're living. So it's more of a status thing for some people. It's not really even about the quality of education. Because those children, when they go to those schools, who told you they need those certificates?
Because
Many
the jobs
of-
are waiting for them
Exactly.
already.
The surname.
The surname.
The surname is working already. Before we leave issues around governance, again, we seem to also be dealing with weak institutions, weak policies.
Absolutely.
Because again, if we talk from now till eternity, if we do not have certain things in place that will also help the youths, because we have a minister for youth, for God's sake, and the question you ask sometimes is, what are they doing? So how do we also begin to channel energy towards ensuring that, policy consistency, weak institutional capacity to implement youth-focused initiatives are also, focused on?
First of all, you've asked several questions put into one, and I think that you may find out that the hands of the Minister of Youth and Sports Development may be tied. And the other challenge I've seen so far is that most times when we say we have a Minister for Youth, they are mostly focused on sports.
Oh, but then this one, there are two different ministries. This particular administration.
Okay, so there's a separate one for...
Yes,
so most times what they try to do, from what I've seen, is let's just do some empowerment here and there and stuff like that. And when they say empowerment, what we're basically doing is handouts. Not really capacity building. When you do handouts, people will take the money, like the Empower scheme. Where has it led us to today?
Right.
You give people sewing machines, you give people laptops, you give people stuff that would only take them for a couple of months, at most 1 year. Yeah. After that, what happens? But when you do capacity building, meaning internal development, at the end of the day, with little support, they're able to do more.
Because they have the skill.
Because they have the skill. So we need to focus more on capacity building and not just internal development. Train somebody to develop a website. For the rest of his life in this generation, the person will continue to eat.
Yeah, so
train somebody to do social media. Right. For the rest of his life, the person will be able to eat.
Right.
Train somebody to talk or to speak better. For the rest of his life, the person will have food to eat. So we are doing more of capacity building for things that have transitional phases.
Right.
And not skills for things that would never fade out.
Yeah, I like how you said it earlier that, this is not just for government alone. This is something that has to do with everybody. So how will the private sector also come, play a pivotal role here? Because oftentimes we always say government, but I always say we all are government. And so we must also ensure that in our own little spaces, we also do something. And like we say, young people are out there. A whole lot of them are out there. So how do we all ensure that it is not just left at the doorsteps of either the federal, the state, or the local government? Everybody is involved here.
So one of the things we can do, in maybe for private sector, individuals, is to, as I said again, capacity building. Because private sector is
I'm sorry, Fola. Again, yes, capacity building, but these young people themselves, how do we begin to get into their minds to know what exactly they want? Because sometimes you assume that this is what they want, you take it to them,
and they don't want it.
And they don't actually want it, or they don't even tell you what they want. And like our piece this morning did say that they want fast life. They don't want anything that will take them months or years to recoup. They want now. I mean, like they say now. So how do we begin to get into their mindset?
Now, two things, and I like the fact that you mentioned mindset.
Right.
A systemic problem is actually built on mindset. So if the wrong mindset has been pushed to the people, we're going to have a systemic problem. So what we need to do is, first of all, go back to secondary schools where they're still young, the brains are still fresh, the minds are not fully formed to the point of focusing only on money. They don't have bills to pay. They are not teenagers responsible for feeding their families or teenagers responsible for raising their siblings. At that point in time, when we start talking to them and getting them to focus on the right things, we can make a lot of changes. Because sometimes, let's be fair to some of these people, they are young people they are adults in young people's bodies. They are taking responsibility.
Burden on
them. They have burdens of parents, burdens that don't belong to them. Now, again, I don't justify or exonerate all of those bad behaviors, but that is the reality for some people. So that's why I go to secondary schools, for example. Why am I going to secondary schools? What business do I have with them? Is to make sure that the proper orientation begins with them. Not all of them are going to listen, but the ones you're able to catch, you are still able to save the country from that disaster. So I think that the corporate organization, whatever they can do with the young people, as early as possible, start with them. They need reorientation, then equip them. Go into the university. At the university level, for some people, it's already late, but it's never too late. The ones you can equip them, show them the way, let them know that, look, don't focus on your certificate alone. You can do this. There are so many other things that you can do. I think that we should not focus on who will listen and who will not listen.
Right.
Let's get as many as are willing to listen, give them something, and at least we would have played our role. If there are 100 people to impact and you're able to impact 10, that's 10% of it gone. You have how many left? 90%. And again, you're absolutely right when you say investigate what the issues are before you try and solve a problem. And that reminds me of a particular case of a church trying to do CSR. Very funny story. They went to a community, they saw that there was no borehole, and they decided, okay, since there's no borehole, let's give them borehole. And then they went there, dug borehole with church money and everything. At the end of the day, they realized that the community ignored the borehole. What's going on? Why are you not using it? We gave you borehole. Then they started their research and realized that the journey to the stream affords the women enough time to gossip. And so they would ignore the borehole because they won't have enough time to catch up on all gossip. So they would rather go to the stream instead of using the borehole.
Okay,
I'm sure if they asked the men to, there would have been a reason why.
We have identified government and the responsibility of corporate organizations. What about the home front? You just cited an instance now wherein some of these children are living like an adult and they bring in home all sort of things, and the parents are not even bothered to question them. How could you afford an iPhone, the vehicles that you're riding? Rather, they pat them on the back that they should go out there and bring more. So how do we reorientate parents as well, not to put these children under unnecessary pressure?
One of the things that we, unfortunately, first of all, it's sad that we even have to talk about orientating parents. And when I say it's sad, it's expected that a parent is mature enough to lead children. It's expected that a parent, did your parent ever sit you down to tell you, I must not see this thing in your hand?
No.
You know the kind of parents you have. You know that there are things you cannot bring
Home.
I saw a video online recently and then it resurfaced where a teenager brought home a Mercedes-Benz, an SUV for that matter. And the father said, you dare not enter my house. But other people on the streets were praising the boy.
Really?
So you know that there is a koigba, meaning that this person was trained but chose his own path.
Right.
And there are those who are encouraging. I've also heard and seen cases where the person is saying, don't you know where your mates are succeeding? Or some parents enrolling children in Yahoo schools.
Right.
That's a disaster, and unfortunately, I don't even know where to start with that. But what we have to get to at that level is government introducing punitive measures. And one of the ways to solve that is the electronic payment systems that we already have in the country. Now, one of the things we don't like is being monitored.
Yeah.
But we're going to get to that level where the government obviously sees your cash flow, sees the pattern. Data analytics will be introduced into banking. When data analytics and artificial intelligence meet banking, it will be more difficult for you to steal. Because the moment there is a wrong pattern in your inflow, they flag it and they investigate you. So the young people already have the resources to make that happen, which is why the government has to collaborate with young people who can introduce both artificial intelligence and data analytics into banking. So at the end of the month, it just shows you a pattern. Anybody whose account inflow has an irregular pattern, he just flags it, sends a report to the branch manager escalates it, EFCC begins to ask you questions.
Okay.
Already in our system, if you have an inflow of more than 5 million naira, you are mandated to report it to the EFCC. But if you cannot defend it, it becomes a problem. So we need to do that on the part of the government. Now, on the part of parents, I think that we need to de-escalate the message of show-off, the message of prosperity, the message of the end justifies the means. The end does not always justify the means. The end for somebody who thinks that the end is justifiable or that the means is justifiable can be HIV/AIDS. Somebody uses his or her body to feed the family, or somebody uses his head, does so many ridiculous things. So the end, because at the end of the day, the person can get you the money, but the person is dying. So we should not tell people that the end justifies the means. And finally, I've never excused the media, even though it's my own forte too, that the media is also to blame. A number of times, we should never, I think we should come to a point in time when Music videos where people are throwing words of cash should be banned. Music videos where people flaunt money that we know they don't have. And that's what young people are listening to. That's what they are watching all the time. So if you're flashing that, flashy lifestyle on television all the time, and that's the song that appeals to young people, what do you think they will aspire to? Because what you see is what you want to become.
Right.
So the media is just as culpable as the irresponsible parents out there.
Absolutely. Okay. As part of solutions to this challenge this morning, how do we begin to also go back to issues around role model, volunteerism, civic engagement? How do we also get our youth to understand that these things are also very important, and they are things that can also help them be set on the right path?
I'll start from the media again. Let's project more genuinely successful people.
Right.
People who are doing well, people who have integrity. And when I say genuinely successful people, we must come to a point where we detach success from money. Because it's not every successful person that has money.
True.
There are successful people who don't have money. But we have defined success as the volume of cash you've been able to stack up.
Or the kind of vehicle that you ride.
Or the kind of vehicle you ride. It's not what drives you, it's what you drive that we're focusing on. So if we say that, look, at this person is doing well in his or her field, money is not the issue. If a society celebrates success because of hard work, then the younger generation will see the need to succeed as well as that person. So let's project the right models. The models we are projecting are the people that simply have a funny hairstyle, have some cash to throw around, can bribe their way through, do whatever it is and get away with it. So let's stop projecting such people as successful. Let's project the other people who are more... when we were growing up, who were the people that we saw as successful people? You hear stories about Lateef Jakande. You hear stories about Obafemi Awolowo. All of us wanted to read about him. You hear stories about Wole Soyinka. You hear stories about Gani Fawemi. There are more people like that in this generation. Who is talking about them? Nobody. Right. Who is showcasing them? Are you going to say that? How many times do you hear about Chimamanda Adichie on our television screens today? How many times do you hear people talking about Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is the DG of the World Trade Organization and is a Nigerian? Who's talking about them? Who is talking about Femi Akinwumi Adesina, the outgoing president of African Development Bank? A Nigerian is the sitting president of African Development Bank. How many times do we hear about him on television?
Right.
A Nigerian was appointed National Security Advisor to President Donald Trump, Wale Adeyemo, but called Wally in the United States. Who is talking about him?
Right.
Okay, let's talk about our value system now, which are some of the things that this youth they also look up to. And a case at hand is what happened recently in our airports, that of Kwam and excuse me, of Comfort. And waking up this morning, going through the dailies, I just saw that Kwam had been appointed as a security ambassador at the airport, or aviation, whatever you want to call it. Do you think one small boy or girl watching the attitude of Kwam or that of Comfort will not be pushed to engage in such kind of thing later on in the future? Because these people have not been punished, according to me.
So it comes back to what we've just said. First of all, which society gave them the power? It's this same society. We celebrated them so much more
as a system.
As a system, we celebrated them so much more than other people. And take, for example, as an author, I've written quite a number of books, at least 30 books, with more in the works. But I'm not as celebrated as somebody who sings a particular song repeatedly, a song that you already know. You have heard it repeatedly. The person sings it over and over and over again, but that person will come to a performance, sing for like 5 minutes. He's not even singing it, he's miming it, because the DJ is playing it, and you pay that person 10 million naira. But to invite somebody like me to speak, you would not pay me 10% of 10 million naira. So that system needs to be quashed. And until we do that, we're going to continue to have that kind of system where people become stupendously wealthy as a result of singing a song that everybody already knows. And I don't have anything against anybody singing, but there are other areas that you can equally reward or even give more reward to. Take, for example, if as a speaker, I come to your meetings and I say the same thing over and over again, would you want to listen to me?
Not at all.
But somebody sings the same song over and over again, yet you listen to it all the time. And some of those songs that we're saying, in those days, you know, when you become a bit more religious, they tell you, you don't sing secular songs. But guess what? Those secular songs that we're telling people not to sing have become like worship songs today. Ẹni rí nǹkan rẹ̀ tó fẹ́ kú pẹ̀lú ẹ̀ o, ọwọ́ ẹni tó ti sọnù ńkọ́.
Yeah, but then that's moral.
What kind of song are we singing today?
If you put it side by side.
Go and listen to songs that were released more than 40 years ago, 30 years ago.
They're still relevant.
But the songs that were sung just last year. So those are the issues.
Right. I mean, valid points we've raised here this morning, Fola. And since, you know, these challenges we've looked about and you've also preferred a few solutions, if you were to picture Nigeria in the next 10, 20 years, how do you see us moving if we get or if we prioritize youth development rightly?
If we prioritize youth development, we're still a very viable nation.
Okay.
We're also still a growing nation. There are so many other nations who don't have the opportunity that we have. We have the numbers, and in the next, say, decade, we're currently the 8th largest country in the world, and we're projected to be the 3rd largest country, overtaking the United States of America.
In terms of population?
In terms of population, meaning that we're just coming right after China and India. Now, that's an advantage for us with numbers, if we do it right. But if we don't, it becomes a disaster because numbers without resources and adequate training simply creates more problems. That's why, I mean, when people talk about our population being a problem, I say, you don't know what you're talking about. China is 1.4 billion. India is 1.4 billion. That's the entire population of Africa right now. So with that population, China is doing extremely well. So what we need to do is to make sure that we increase training for young people, and not just training that makes us relevant to the world. Not training that we think is right. It's the training that, let's look at where the world is going. And that's why I talked about social media, talked about artificial intelligence. Take, for example, somebody needs to be talking about, to our communication students, somebody needs to be teaching them effective public relations management using TikTok. Somebody needs to be teaching them strategic management on social media. Somebody needs to be teaching them using LinkedIn for effective community engagement. Who is teaching them all of this? So we need to look at where the world is going, create or curate trainings in that regard, and begin to prepare them for that level. And trust me, the way we're doing farming with the younger generation is no longer farming by just going physically to use your tools, your hoe, and all of that. We're beginning to do more, not just mechanized farming, but we're farming with drones. Technology. People are spraying fertilizers using drones these days. So let's equip and empower them. And I rest assured that our GDP today is not just going to double, it should triple. We have all the resources, but much more than just training people. We need to do better with our image, because I think it's a bigger problem than the training.
And then to the youth themselves.
And to the youth themselves. So if you do better with our image, the harassment at airports will stop, foreign direct investments will come in, if we do the right thing with our image. So I think that we really need to focus on giving ourselves a better image. And those who have, now there are some PR issues we're having as a country at the moment, in Dubai, in Ghana, I don't want to mention, but you already have an idea. Now, that's giving us a bad image as well. Let's not go to other people's countries and try to dominate or try to take over or impose on them what they don't want. Let's do better. So if we do better, people become more receptive to us, and it creates better growth for us as a society.
All right, we'll have to leave it here this morning. Thank you so much, Fola Daniel Adelis, a youth advocate, author, and motivational speaker, for being here on the program today.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Well, of course, we've talked about today's the challenges, and Fola has also preferred some solution to government. And I'm sure you picked one or two things, even as a young person, in this. You know, sometimes you also wait for government. This is not the time to wait for government. You also need to take the bull by the horn and also equip yourself with those things that you also need for a better future. We'll take a quick break. When the conversation returns, it will be the turn of Joy to take you through her Lagos conversation.